listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, one and all. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight, or the rest of the 24-hour clock, where we play the best of the X-Zone, at www.xzoneradiotv.com. You can also go to our podcast site at xzonepodcast.com. And don't forget, we have the first season of the X-Zone TV show, episodes 1 right through 12, in their entirety, I should say, commercial-free, at xzonetv.com. My guest this hour is Dr. Norman Shealy. He is an MD and holds a Ph.D. He is the founder and CEO of the National Institute of Holistic Medicine, president of Shealy Wellness, LLC, and Holos Energy Medicine Foundation, and president of the National Institute of Holistic Health. He is editor of the Journal of Comprehensive Alternative Medicine. He was the founding president of the American Holistic Medical Association in 1978. He was founding president of the Holos University Graduate Seminary and now is Professor Emeritus of Energy Medicine. He has 12 patents in energy medicine, has published 33 books and over 300 articles. Dr. Shealy's innovations include Dorsal Column Stimulation, Transcutaneous Electrical Nerve Stimulation. That's just to name a few. And this is going to be a very exciting and informative hour. Our topic of discussion tonight is energy medicine, longevity, pain, and depression. Joining me now is Dr. Norman Shealy. And Doctor, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, wonderful to be with you, Rob. Thank you.
My goodness, reading your CV, hats off to you, sir. A lot of wonderful accomplishments, but what I've noticed in each and every one of these different organizations, as well as the inventions that you've done, the books that you've written, is you are a man who is out to help people. And you, sir, are a very rare commodity in a world that is based on fear, intimidation, and people not giving a damn about other people. So hats off to you.
Well, thank you. Ever since I was 4 years of age, that's been my only goal.
Well, sir, I can honestly say I've met a man who has completed his goals and is still going on. So tell me, first of all, what is energy medicine?
Well, interestingly, it's anything except drugs or surgery that can be used for health or healing. So it's an extremely broad field. And, of course, many of the components of it have been around for hundreds to thousands of years. I mean, the oldest known, of course, is acupuncture,
right,
which I took up in 1960s. And, in fact, I was the one who introduced the idea of using electricity on the needles instead of just twirling them with your hands. But there are many other natural approaches, including manipulation, which is relatively new in the Western world.
Right.
But that kind of body work has been around for many hundreds of years. And, of course, the use of of herbs, not drugs, the use of herbs. And nutrition itself, you know. Hippocrates' most famous quote is that medicine should be your food. Food should be your medicine.
It's funny to see medicine returning to its roots, if you'll excuse the pun, getting back to a lot of naturopathic medicine.
Absolutely. I think that overall, naturopathy is closer to the broader feel of holistic medicine than certainly anything in allopathic medicine.
Right. Doctor, please stand by. You and I have to take a short commercial break. We'll be right back. Exonation, our guest this hour, is Dr. Norman Shealy, and he is the founder and CEO of the National Institute of Holistic Medicine, editor of the Journal of Comprehensive Integrative Medicine. And I'm telling you, this man has done so much to make this a better world for you and I. Hats off to him. He's an MD, he has a Ph.D., and he's here tonight talking to us about energy medicine, longevity, pain, and depression. And we'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. Dr. Norman Shealy is our very special guest this hour. www.shealywellness.com is the website. And, Doctor, what are the essentials for health?
Well, actually, there's one big essential, and that is attitude. And it stems from self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, as far as I can tell, the vast majority of illnesses are the result of not taking care of yourself because you don't feel good enough about yourself. It affects everything.
Right.
And so people don't eat right, they don't move, and they become depressed. And actually, in my opinion, approximately 40% of Americans are clinically depressed. Another 40% have what I call a subclinical depressive miasma.
Mm-hmm.
They're about 2 points away from being clinically depressed. And that means that only 20% of people even have a basic positive attitude of some kind. And only 3% of Americans, in a huge study, only 3% have the most essential habits of all, which is no smoking, a body mass index of 18 to 24, eating a minimum of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, and exercising 30 minutes 5 days a week. Only 3% have all 4 of those.
It seems, Doctor, that let's go back 40, 50 years ago. The average lifespan of a person wasn't as long as it is today, and yet we're eating more garbage today than we were back then. We're taking more chemically manufactured drugs than we were taking back then. So how come this shift from going from the healthy to dying young to the crap we eat today and living longer?
Well, there was a wonderful book written in the late 70s called The Role of Medicine by Dr. Thomas McEwen of England. And he pointed out that the increase in lifespan was the development of proper handling of sewage and essentially chlorination of water and adequate protein. And those things, the average death, interestingly, was early in life, back in the beginning of the last century. It was not uncommon for half or more of the children of a family to die in early childhood. In my father's family, for instance, 3 of 9 children all died in early childhood.
Oh, heavens.
So the average life expectancy, if you made it to age 20, has not changed that much.
Wow. So does it have anything to do today with diet, the chemically induced food that we eat? You hear a lot of negativity about the food, but as a
matter of fact, it is now predicted that the current generation of children will be the first in our known history to die younger than their parents.
Wow.
In other words, it sometimes takes a couple of generations for these things to catch up with you. And we now have 2/3 of all Americans overweight, with 1/3 just plain fat.
Yeah, the lifestyle today certainly doesn't help that, sir, does it? You've got people who refuse to do exercise, like when I was a kid. You know, you came home from school, you had an apple, or you had some fruit. You went outside. Then for supper time, Mom, Dad, my brother, and I, and when my grandmother was with us, you sat, you talked, you communicated. Then you had your dessert. You went outside. And then you came in an hour after and did your homework. You went to bed at a proper time. There was no such thing as, well, I'm going to watch TV until 11, 12 o'clock at night. What?
Well, I'm totally with you.
Yeah.
I consider TV one of the great health hazards of all time.
Mm-hmm. I consider anything that is connected to a TV or anything that has a video screen these days as one of the health hazards, because look at what the kids do today. They sit at home with a giant screen TV, 64, 68 inches. They play video games. They don't communicate, and if Mom wants little Arnie to come into the kitchen for supper, what does she do? She texts him, even though he's in the same house.
I know. I mean, you sit in a restaurant and two people who come in together text one another or others outside them while they're sitting there instead of talking to one another.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, sir. In your opinion, as an MD and as the founder and chairman of the National Institute of Holistic Medicine, I won't go down the list, but you're a very well qualified person. The amount of microwaves and the other radio waves that we are subjected to because of cell towers, because of all the handheld devices, are these also playing a negative part in our life?
Oh, absolutely. I've demonstrated this with computerized electroencephalograms, the EEG.
Yeah.
And many people are extremely sensitive to even an electric clock within 6 inches of their head can make the EEG go bananas. Now, a healthy person, it takes 50 milligauss. The electric clock's putting out about 6 milligauss. So my brain doesn't get disturbed until 50 milligauss, which is getting on a plane.
Right.
And I live on a farm and have for well over 45 years because I prefer to be as far away from that kind of civilization as I can.
And understandably so. Wow. So a healthy lifestyle comes with living in the country and living on a farm, right?
Absolutely. And, of course, I grew up that way in a little town of 5,000 people, but my father had a farm 3 miles outside of town. And I could ride my bike out there. And, of course, during World War II, we actually lived on the farm. So I grew up, interestingly, with equal interest in farming and medicine. And I've done both as an adult.
Let me ask you, why do you believe, doctor, that chronic pain is not being well treated by conventional or Western medicine?
Well, that's why I went well out on the twig in 1971, because neurosurgeons at that time were cutting the front half of the spinal cord, called a caudotomy, which is an absolutely barbarian procedure. And when that didn't work, then they did a frontal lobotomy. And when I introduced dorsal column stimulation, which was the first safer way to handle pain with electricity, I suddenly was overwhelmed. I mean, 400 people a year who had failed multiple back surgeries. And I felt that 94% of them were so damaged psychologically and drug-wise that even that procedure couldn't be done. That's why in 1971 I started the first physician-run pain clinic. And over the years, I have worked with over 30,280 people who failed conventional medicine. Most of them, virtually all of them, with pain and depression and anxiety. Not treated well by drugs or surgery.
Not treated by drugs or surgery.
Well, they are not well treated. In other
Oh,
words,
not well treated. I'm sorry, sir.
They were sick despite everything that happened. And my success rate over the years was 85%, getting them off drugs, marked to total reduction in pain, and back to living a normal life. In fact, our clinic was voted 3 years in a row the most effective and the most cost-effective pain clinic in the country.
Does Big Pharma play a part in the... I love the way you laugh. You already know what the question is. All right, let's take the gloves off, because I agree with my take. I'm not going to put any words in anybody's mouth. Big Pharma has a place in society. I think that too many people are making money off of Big Pharma, so Big Pharma is getting the eye closed where it should be having eyes opened and more strictly regulated.
I'm totally with you. In fact, I call them the pharmacomafia. For instance, Rob, think about this. Hypertension. 40% of Americans have high blood pressure. The best combination of drugs will control that blood pressure, maybe 40% of the time. That means 60% of the time the drugs make people worse. Even when they don't make the people much worse, if the blood pressure is controlled, it totally saps fatigue, and almost 100% of the men have erectile dysfunction. I mean, that's not a successful treatment.
Well, no, not as well. It all depends on who you are, because if it causes erectile dysfunction, then they have to create a pill to reverse that process.
Well, I understand
so
that.
It's money, right?
I have treated hundreds and hundreds of people with hypertension. I can get 99% of people normal blood pressure without a drug in the world, and totally safely.
Where have you been all my life?
Well, if you are interested and have someone who needs it, give me an email and I'll tell you the secret.
All right, I appreciate that, sir. You know what? I believe that there are good and bad in everything, sir. I believe that there are doctors who do not like to just disperse drugs to get a patient out of their office fast because of the time restraints that either the insurance company or the government healthcare systems are putting them on. I believe that the medical professionals today are overworked. I believe that the medical system, well, I'm talking about here in Canada, I'm sure it's the same in the States, needs a good overhauling. And I agree with you that the old ways are the best ways, and it's nice to see people like yourself who are doing everything they can as a professional to make sure that people are aware that there are other ways, alternative ways of handling pain and depression. And you and I will talk more on the other side of this break. Stand by, Doctor. Exonation, my guest this hour is Dr. Norman Shealy. His website, www.shealywellness.com. And the good doctor and I will return on the other side of this short break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
And welcome back, everyone. Before we get back to our very special guest this hour, Dr. Norman Shealy, just like to remind everyone that the March edition of the X Chronicles newspaper is our 25th year anniversary publication. 25 years of publishing the X Chronicles newspaper, 25 years of broadcasting the X Zone radio show. And it's all because of you, the members of the X Zone Nation and the X Zone family around this world. Because it's our goal, each and every night here at Relmar, the parent company of the X Zone radio show, the X Zone TV show, and the list goes on and on and on. One goal, to make a change, a positive change in someone's life. That's all we want to do, is just change one life. And this has been our goal for the last 25 years. Thanks to you, the members of the X Zone Nation, and thanks to our guests, like our guest tonight, Dr. Norman Shealy. And again, Doctor, thanks so much for being with us. Always a great pleasure speaking to someone who is making a positive difference in this world of ours.
Well, thank you, Rob. It's great. You know, between us, we are both helping the world equally. And
that's what it takes today, Doctor. Like you do your own radio show, and I've read a list of the organizations that you founded, that you're working on. Let me ask you a very deep question. What drives you, Doctor? What gets you out of bed every morning?
Passion to help people. Honestly, I think there's only one purpose in life.
Yeah.
That is to help other people. Now, I also think you must take care of yourself first so that you have the energy to help other people.
Bingo.
I start every morning, well, I'm a sort of fanatic about it, with 90 minutes of physical exercise. But I get up at 5 a.m. And I just like to move.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, my producer, Craig, just whispered in my ear that you remind him of Hawkeye Pierce on MASH. The passion in which you take your approach to medicine.
Well, I think that's true, but it's been there all my life. I remember, just wanting to sort of jump over the counter to help. She only had a fractured arm, it was no big deal. But when I was 12 years old, I'm working in my father's store, and this little lady came in with a cat, and I almost jumped over the counter. I don't know what I've done, but that was part of my love for helping people.
Why are pharmaceuticals dispensed at the first sign of pain? Isn't pain medicine just masking the problem and not dealing with it?
Well, of course. Now, in my opinion, always the number one thing is to treat the cause and correct it if you can. Secondly, on the other hand, if it cannot be treated, if there is, if it's not a progressive disease like cancer, let's say it's scar,
right,
or it's, something like, then you can retrain the nervous system. What I learned back in the early days of running my independent pain clinic was you can actually teach people how to control pain mentally. Biofeedback came about at those times. I got into biofeedback. I got into autogenic training. And one of the things it did for me was I learned how to detach from things I cannot change. I used to get pretty, upset at how bad some things could be. Now I look at it, if I can make a change, I put energy into it. If I know I have no way I can conceive of changing it, I do what I call detach and move on.
So when we're looking at chronic pain, how would your treatment of chronic pain be different from the doctor who would just prescribe Percocet, Vicodin, or any other major painkiller?
Well, number one, I would if they're on it, I would start weaning them off the day I see them. And I would put them in a 40-hour program where they actually, from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, are being programmed mentally and physically. Obviously, we do some physical things, mainly massage and that kind of thing. We use a lot of electrical stimulation. We use a lot of music. We use a lot of focused light. You know, the brain responds to the frequency of light or sound. So if I put in flashing lights at 4 to 7 cycles a second, or even down to 3 cycles a second, that is deep relaxation, and it can help people detach or withdraw or not feel pain. Then, one of the things I do is I have them imagine they're breathing in and out through the skin of their right hand for 20 minutes. And then I show them that the skin of the right hand has lost much of its sensation. I can pinch it.
Right.
And they are shocked by the fact that I can pinch the left hand, it hurts, the right hand doesn't. So that's just one of many tools we use to retrain the brain.
So it's just a matter of retraining, knowledge. I'm sure diet plays a big part in it.
Oh, yes. I try to get everybody off bread today because bread has been poisoned with Roundup, and it is a great contributor to a lot of autoimmune diseases. I, of course, do not believe that there is any good food at any fast food restaurant, period.
Yeah, it seems like today is a sit down and drive society. You know, you get up in the morning. I know a couple of our sales reps that they just get in the car in the morning, they drive to the coffee shop, get a coffee and a breakfast bun, do their driving, and now you can even drive through the dry cleaners, drive through the bank, drive through the pharmacy. Now they even have drive-through funeral homes. Like,
pass the casket as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, so we try to get people to. One of my favorite statements. I went to McDonald's in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
I took one bite, and I spit it out, and I threw it away, and I've never been back, and I'll never go in again.
Why?
Because I tasted, I guess, the monosodium glutamate.
Oh, MSG, yeah, it's horrific.
Well, it damages the brain.
Yeah.
My body doesn't like that kind of thing. I like my brain.
Just like watching kids go into a store near any high school or elementary school. They go in, they'll buy a bag of chips and a big bottle of Diet Pop. Hello, what about aspartame, people?
Well, my idea of fast food is a piece of fruit and some nuts.
I like that. But once again, you know how you and I were talking a little while ago about training the brain?
Yes.
This is exactly what advertising does. It trains the brain to want to eat certain foods, to go certain places, to wear certain clothes, to have a certain look. So here you are in the medical community trying to train the brain for what I call the right stuff. And, you know, people are watching TV, they're playing their iPads, their iPods, they're getting these